one-shotting Butcher and killing Nightmare dungeon bosses of 40 levels higher in less than 5 seconds. At the same time, it doesn't end on just insane S-tier single target damage, but also reaches A+ tier at large packs clearing, being able to land over 2 million damage criticals per hit for up to 6 million damage per second in total from all sources. And that's already after the Giga Nerf patch that came in with the first season. Importantly, with this insane damage output, this build has a good survivability, nearly breaking the glass cannon build laws. You will be able to clear nightmare dungeons of much up to 45 levels higher, while clearing those around 15-20 levels higher in less than 3 minutes. This variation of the Bone Lance Necromancer is one of the most ridiculously dominating and fun to play build in the entire game, while having better consistency and survivability compared to the other similar builds. Meet the Spear of Ratna. This fast-paced range build is wrapped around nearly constant critical strikes with the huge critical damage, high attack and movement speed together with the great AoE damage, which ensures tactical superiority and that most of enemies, be it strong elites or large regular monster packs, never reach to attack you to begin with. Another core aspect of the build is the link between your total essence, Necromancer's resource, and the damage, aka chasing the maximum essence possible over 100. While it is not focused on CC, it still utilizes one powerful AoE skill which slows and debuffs enemies down, and one more skill that doesn't do damage and not technically a CC as well, but practically can work miracles in tough situations. Defense-wise, the build relies on nearly permanent barrier and maximum damage reduction passively. As the build extra specialties, it also has nearly infinite resource against the large crowds, and one extra trick in the sleeve to protect itself and control the enemies. It also sacrifices both skeletal warriors and mages, but not the golem. More about that later. Let's begin from the class skills review. Our basic skill is Bone Splinters. The skill itself is your main way to generate essence till you reach endgame and pretty rare exposed flesh aspect. The Acolyte Splinter's second upgrade is a way to get some extra crit chance against bosses. Our core skill is Bone Spear, which is incredibly strong skill shot that damages all enemies in a line at a large distance. First upgrade adds smaller shots to it and so extra damage and AoE to it, and the second upgrade, Paranormal Bone Spear, adds extra crit chance to it and even more shots if the hit was critical, and in this build almost every attack is such. Also max the Unleaven Energy and take Imperfectly Balanced to lay out the foundation of the build core synergy between max essence and extra damage. We also need the maxed Hewed Flesh passive that helps with generating extra corpses we will need to maintain our ultimate and have any corpses at all when fighting bosses. Bone Prison is a multi-purpose skill. First of all, it allows to instantly refill, sometimes fully, your essence when fighting many enemies at once, thanks to its first upgrade. Secondly, it guarantees enemies inside it to become vulnerable for extra damage thanks to the second upgrade, Ghastly Bone Prison. Lastly, while it's not a crowd control technically, it still allows to stop enemies from reaching you or even completely block many narrow passages in dungeons, giving you a few extra seconds to regroup, heal, wait for cooldowns or generate essence. You can also cast Bone Prison on yourself, which will serve as an environmental shield from the close enemies. The Bone Prison is a choice over corpse tendrils you can often see in bone builds, and here's why. While on paper, the corpse tendrils combined with the aspect of the grasping vines look incredibly powerful, it's actually pretty situative and not so useful as it looks. First of all, with proper gear, class skill and Paragon bonuses, this build passively has up to 90% crit chance, so the first bonus of the Grasping Vines aspect is only half effective. Secondly, Aspect's crit damage bonus is arguably needed. Here is the scene. Yes, it's cool to do, let's say, 2.5 million damage crits instead of 2.2 million, but you can do even 10 million damage per hit. But if you will lack survivability greatly, you will waste much more time clearing the dungeons because you will die way too often. While without this extra bonus, you still do ridiculous damage and still one-shot everything. This leads to the last point. Corpse tendrils can be casted only on corpse, and as this build does not generate as many corpses everywhere like the pet or blood builds, and during boss fights you will only have just a couple of corpses in total at all, it's pretty situative and sometimes you will be not able to cast it exactly when and where needed. At the other hand, Bone Prison doesn't require corpse and can be cast anywhere, including yourself, and provides generally much better positional protection, and those few extra seconds exactly when you need them, combined with the crazy damage, often will be a decisive moment in battle. Plus, compared to the corpse tendrils, due to the extra bone skill synergy, you can use Bone Prison up to 3 times more often. Now our bread and butter crowd control skill, Decreepify. Not only it doesn't have a cooldown and has really large area of effect, it both slows enemies and brings their damage down, which adds to our survivability. Additionally, the Spear of Ratma has a large damage bonus against slow targets. On top of that, there is a chance to stun enemies affected to the first upgrade, and the second upgrade, Abhorrent Decreepify, introduces the vital mechanic to decrease our skill's cooldowns. Also, max both Death Reach and Amplified damage passives. In the next skill cluster, max out all 4 bone passives. In total, you will get bonus crit chance, bonus damage, bonus critical strike damage, and probably most importantly, one more cooldown reduction proc based on the essence you spend, which is once again is greatly enhanced by the fact you have overcapped max essence pool. The Ultimates cluster take the Bone Storm with its both upgrades. Due to the double cooldown reduction mechanics combined with 2 certain aspects, you will be able to maintain Bone Storm nearly permanently, which will give the crit chance, damage reduction and a barrier. Also max the Standalone, Memento Mori and Inspiring Leader passives. That will give you extra attack speed, damage reduction, crit chance and maximum essence. Lastly, the key passive, Ossified Essence. This one is the cornerstone of our build damage, giving your bone skills the more damage, the more essence you had upon casting them. As you will be able to have up to 250 essence or so, this means the Ossified Essence alone will give you up to 200% extra damage bonus. As for your summons, you should sacrifice Skeletal Skirmishers and Shadow Mages for the extra bonuses, while keeping your Golem active with the second upgrade for Blood Golem. The leveling pass and skill differences. This build is also great for leveling, with just some minimal adjustments compared to its endgame setup. First of all, it's much easier to level up with full minion pack. Pick Defenders for Warriors and Shadow for Mages. Sacrificing Skirmishers and Shadow Mages only when you will take Standalone and Memento Mori passives, which most likely more or less will match the moment you finish the campaign, around level 40. Secondly, as you will be more fragile till you reach the full potential of your Bone Storm, which includes 2 aspects, it's better to get Blood Mist instead of Bone Prison, which you will swap at some point. These adjustments, up to being laid out literally per point and swap moments for every level, are shown at the Leveling Pass tab in the build calculator, so you can check it yourself anytime, without me bothering you to memorize it here and now. Let's get straight to the Paragon boards. At your starting board, use the control glyph that will give us free extra 140% damage bonus against targets affected by Decreepify. The second board, Bone Graft, is the most important and the only truly essential one for this build due to literally all its magic and rare nodes being 100% effective for the build core synergy, maximum essence, bone skill damage, crit chance and damage. At the Bone Graft board, insert the Essence Glyph that will provide nearly 100% extra critical strike damage. Board number 3 is Scent of Death, which legendary node has pretty nice ability that will basically give you extra 15% damage resistance most of the time during the dungeon's clearing, and either damage reduction or the same amount of damage bonus when fighting bosses. In this board, use the Amplify Glyph that will give you extra armor, some stats and damage against injured enemies, which is pretty good against bosses and some pesky elites. The fourth and the last board is Flesh Eater, which legendary node will be basically synchronized with whenever time you will be activating Bone Storm, as it's the only corpse consuming skill in the build, and so adding 40% extra damage bonus on top of everything else for some extra damage burst numbers. In this board, use the exploit glyph for the vulnerable damage bonus. Why only 4 boards though, while most of the builds in Diablo 4 use 5 or even 6? Necromancer, due to its highly distinct build setup, has the biggest widespread of both boards and glyphs, which are also pretty different. Around half of the glyphs though are minions oriented, and the rest is divided between Bone, Shadow and Blood, the overpowered bonuses. So this leaves us with not too many boards and glyphs to choose from, but in our case there is literally nothing bad in it. The 4 glyphs mentioned are everything you need to maximize the build effectiveness. The only kinda possible 5th glyph here is Corporeal, but its bonuses are pretty arguable, and at the end, bonuses from the higher number of magic and rare nodes you will be able to pick instead of going into the 5th board will be more profitable. As for the nodes in general, it's all about picking stats related to the maximum essence, crit chance and damage. The damage to healthy enemies bonus is also great, as with one-shot playstyle of the build, this means even more chances to one-shot regular enemies and elites as well, together with max health and armor for defensive ones. The items, aspects, sockets and elixirs. The only unique item actually worth it for the Spear of Rathma is the Deathless Visage helmet, due to all of its stats being perfect for the build and the great extra echoes damage mechanic that is noticeably improving the AoE part of the build, which is worse compared to the single target damage. But till you get this one, the build calculator page features recommended stats for the regular helmets, for which you can use the eluding aspect or the aspect of the protector. Also for leveling, a two-handed scythe weapon type is better due to its life on kill feat. For the endgame, pick the two-handed sword because of its innate critical damage bonus. Now to the aspects. About helmet you already know. Chest armor, aspect of might to add to your already great damage resistance, which gives noticeably more contribution in this build compared to the armor. Gloves, accelerating aspect, which will basically give you a permanent attack speed boost due to constant critical hits. Boots, Wind Striker aspect, which in the similar way will ensure permanent movement speed boost, which is important for this build to stay out of the enemy reach. Rings, aspect of serration for even stronger critical hits, and the aspect of exposed flesh, which is crucially important to maintain as higher essence level possible all the time, because the more essence you have at the moment of each skill shot, the more damage it does. Now 3 other absolutely crucial aspects and where to place them. Amulet, splintering aspect, which is our main way to make enemies vulnerable, as well as a great damage booster. Pants, aspect of the shielding storm, that gives you barrier while the bone storm is up. And the last one, Osseous Gale aspect, placed into your two-handed weapon. Why exactly this placement? Similar to the choice of Bone Prison over Corpse Tendrils and its aspect, we place Splintering aspect at the amulet slot instead of the two-handed weapon, because the build still does ridiculous enough damage anyway, and the vulnerable time from the amulet slot is enough as well. At the other hand, having Osseous Gale exactly at the two-handed weapon, which doubles its effectiveness, together with 2 procs that shorten our skill cooldowns, this brings us to a result when your Bone Storm will be up most of the time, one after another, with maybe just a couple second breaks. Take into account that at the demonstration part now, I'm using the Osseous Gale row, which is good but not perfect. This in turn means nearly permanent damage reduction, crit chance and a barrier, which is also unique in its own way here. It gets stronger the more enemies are around you. With this exact setup, the build loses just a bit of damage, which still remains absolutely insane, as you could see from the showcase part and will see yourself. But in return, you receive incredible survivability feats, which are crucially important if you want to take on the hardest challenges in the game. Sockets. For the Eternal Realm, place Emerald green in your weapon for vulnerable crit damage, Ruby red in your armor for max HP, as this build needs decent HP amount, plus it will synergize well with your barrier generation, and skull in your jewelry for some extra armor. As for the seasonal sockets, use the Calculated, Lion Heart and the Tempting Fate as your malignant hearts. The Calculated will give the build absolutely ridiculous stun procs every couple seconds, effectively moving the build's crowd control tier from C to nearly A, and also greatly boosting your survivability. Lionheart will make your nearly permanent barrier stronger and also passively heal you while it's on, and the Tempting Fate, due to the build nearly always critical hitting, is basically a free 85% extra damage boost. Note: at the moment of the video creation, the Barber Heart is ridiculously overpowered, so much it explodes entire screens and strong bosses in a single shot. But also, as it's so much disbalanced at the moment, it will be surely nerfed heavily soon, and in general, it doesn't fit the fast kill mechanic of the build. As for the elixir choice, your body is the precision elixir that gives bonus to crit chance and damage. When you will have big enough stock of unique loot-only elixirs, you can use the elixir of resourcefulness, as it's basically a free extra 50% damage boost. The Spear of Ratma is one of the strongest, if not just strongest, ranged builds in the game that annihilates bosses and large packs in a blink of an eye. Delivering crazy damage bursts and technically being a glass cannon, it doesn't stop it from maintaining a good survivability that allows it to challenge the highest nightmare dungeon levels, not even remotely possible for most of other builds. It is easy and fun to play with, and now it's yours. Don't forget that entire build is laid out at the build calculator page, that's linked down below in the video description. Thanks for watching, folks, and see you in the next video. Make sure to enable that bell button and join our Discord to always stay in touch and discuss RPGs. And if you want to support me during the war and get access to new vids earlier, take a look at my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee pages. Stay tuned, stay safe and stay happy. Sinitar here, signing out.